Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the public scoping meeting for the proposed Copper Rays solar project. Thank you all very much for joining. We are very appreciative of having a number of people who have joined and are able to participate this evening. My name is Caitlin Gillerin, and I am the consultant for the BLM. I will be facilitating the meeting tonight. Tonight's scoping meeting will include an introduction by the Pahrump Office Field Manager, Nicholas Pay, followed by introductions of the participants from the BLM Southern Nevada District and Panorama Environmental Incorporated, the third-party contractor who is facilitating tonight's session. After introductions, Whitney Worthland, BLM Project Manager, will present on the proposed Copper Rays solar project and provide a short overview of the BLM process. Following the presentations, there will be a question and answer session facilitated by Panorama Environmental with responses from the BLM. And then we will open up the forum for public input, after which we'll close out for the evening. This meeting will be recorded and the video will be posted to the project information webpage posted in the chat. Now we will turn it over to Nicholas, the Pahrump Field Manager, for a short introduction and an overview of our presenters and other participants for this evening's scoping meeting.
Thank you, Caitlin. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the public scoping meeting for the proposed Copper Rays solar project. My name is Nicholas Pay, and I'm the field manager for the Bureau of Land Management's Pahrump Field Office. I want to thank each of you for joining us tonight to learn more about the project and to provide us comments on the proposal. The Copper Rays solar project is located in the Pahrump Valley, south of State Route 160 and adjacent to the Clark County, Nye County line. The BLM completed the application evaluation review for this project in March of this year and has initiated the environmental review required by the National Environmental Policy Act, also known as NEPA. Input provided during the application evaluation will be carried forward into this NEPA process for the proposed Copper Rays solar project. Tonight's meeting is part of the scoping period that will be open until January 13th, 2023. The scoping process is an important part of initiating the NEPA process. During scoping, BLM asked for comments and input on the proposed project to better understand the potential issues and the concerns, as well as develop a reasonable range of alternatives to the proposed action. Tonight's presentation will provide you information on the proposed project and an overview of the NEPA process. As part of tonight's meeting, you'll also have the opportunity to ask questions and provide comments on the proposal. We will also explain what kind of information will be most helpful during the scoping period. Before we begin, I want to make sure that everybody knows that we're still in the early stages of the NEPA process, so we may not have all of the answers to your in-depth or specific questions. We will work hard to provide answers, but please know that even hearing your questions will help us better understand the needs to be analyzed during the environmental review. As we begin with the presentation, I would like to introduce you to the speakers today. Whitney Worthland is the BLM's project manager for the Copper Rays solar project, and she will be providing an overview of the presentation on the project as well as the NEPA process. Whitney is also joined by other BLM staff members who are shown on the screen and who are working behind the scenes to help answer your questions later in the meeting. At this time, I'd like to turn the meeting back over to Caitlin to go over tonight's meeting format.
Thank you, Nicholas. Tonight's forum will provide opportunities for questions and public comment. There will be a question and answer session where written questions can be submitted. There will also be an opportunity for verbal public comment toward the end of the scoping meeting. We'll have more information on these two opportunities later on. The BLM received multiple requests to extend the scoping period due to concerns about the timing overlapping with major holiday periods. The BLM reviewed these requests and has extended the public scoping period until January 13th, 2023. Comments and questions can be submitted via the Participate Now button on ePlanning, email to the email address on the screen, or via mail to the BLM Southern Nevada District Office. We will also provide this information in the chat for this forum. As mentioned on this slide, before including your address, phone number, email address, or other personal identifying information in your comment, you should be aware that your entire comment, including your personal identifying information, may be publicly available at any time. While you can ask that your personal identifying information be withheld from public review, the BLM cannot guarantee that they'll be able to do so. Anonymity is not allowed for submissions from organizations or businesses and from individuals identifying themselves as representatives or officials of organizations or businesses. Now Whitney will present an overview of the Copper Rays Solar Project, as well as the BLM completed application evaluation process and the ongoing environmental compliance process.
Thank you, Caitlin. Good evening, everyone. Copper Rays Solar LLC, subsidiary of Leeward Renewable Energy, submitted a right-of-way application for the Copper Rays Solar Project for the construction, operation, maintenance, and eventual decommissioning of a proposed 700 megawatt solar photovoltaic power generating facility with interconnection to the regional transmission system and battery storage. The project is proposed on approximately 5,050 acres of BLM administered lands within the Pahrump Valley, southeast of the town of Pahrump and 40 miles northwest of Las Vegas. The BLM completed the application evaluation process for the Copper Rays Solar Project in March 2022, which determined it appropriate to initiate the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, process for the project. Additional information on the application evaluation process for the project will be presented later in the meeting and can be found at the project webpage, which we have included a link to in the chat. The map on the screen shows the proposed Copper Rays Solar Project as the red polygon in the middle of the map, adjacent to the Clark-Nye County line and south of State Route 160. Copper Rays Solar LLC has proposed an approximately 5-mile long generation tie or GenTie transmission line for the project, which is shown in green on the map. The proposed GenTie line runs north of the project area, crossing State Route 160 and turning west to the existing Gamebird substation, identified as the black and yellow square on the map. Existing transmission lines and infrastructure would then be utilized to transmit the electricity to the grid from the Gamebird substation. The western edge of the project boundary is less than 1 mile from Hafen Ranch Road. This map shows the location of the proposed Copper Rays Solar Project in relation to local roads and streets within the Pahrump Valley area, including Tacoma Springs Road, Brown Springs Road, Old Route 16, Hafen Ranch Road, and Trout Canyon Road. The table on the screen shows the proposed project components. The Copper Rays Solar Project includes the installation of solar arrays within the project area, which are composed of solar photovoltaic modules on fixed tilt or single axis mounting systems. The solar arrays would connect to the power conversion stations that help transmit electricity to the on-site substation through a series of above ground and underground collection systems. Once the electricity reaches the on-site substation, it is delivered off-site to the existing Gamebird substation via the proposed interconnection GenTie line. The project would also include the construction of 35 acres of battery storage facilities. The project would have a single primary access road from State Route 160. Additional facilities proposed for construction include an operations and maintenance building, communication facilities, remote monitoring system, meteorological stations, and site and security fencing. An updated preliminary plan of development for the proposed project is available online at the project webpage, which we'll provide a link for in the chat. The map on the screen shows the layout of the proposed solar arrays, project fence line, inter-array access roads, on-site substation, proposed construction move-on and lay-down areas, drainage basins, collection lines, and battery energy storage systems. The Copper Rays Solar Project is proposed to be constructed in 2 phases. The first phase could generate 200 megawatts of energy, and the second phase could generate 500 megawatts of energy. The applicant has designed the proposed solar arrays to avoid some known resources within the project area, such as hydrologic features, drainages, vegetation, and recreation uses. Additionally, Copper Rays Solar LLC has proposed a reroute of an existing route that crosses through the western side of the project area, which is shown as the blue dashed line on the western project fence line. We'll explain more about the applicant's proposed avoidance measures later in the presentation. Along with the analysis of the proposed solar project components, the environmental impact statement will include analysis of a resource management plan amendment for the visual resource management class and utility corridors that intersect with the project. In the BLM, land use plans are referred to as resource management plans, or RMPs. The RMP provides guidance for proposed projects and decisions within a geographic area and helps BLM manage those identified public lands. For the BLM Southern Nevada District, the approved RMP is the 1998 Las Vegas RMP. BLM regulations require that all actions and authorizations conform to the approved RMP. If a specific project cannot be modified sufficiently to conform to the RMP, then the RMP may be amended so that the project can then achieve that required conformance. In the case of the Copper Rays Solar Project, the BLM anticipates a RMP amendment to address project conformance with the area's Visual Resource Management, or VRM, classification, which was designated as VRM Class 3 in the RMP. BLM is considering amending the RMP so that the Visual Resource Management classification of the project area may be modified from Class 3 to Class 4. A utility scale solar project, such as Copper Rays, would be compatible with VRM Class 4 management objectives and therefore in conformance with the RMP. This slide visually displays the VRM Resource Management Plan amendment with the project boundary in blue, proposed GenTie line in green, and the designated VRM Class 3 shown as the dotted red layer. BLM will analyze the proposed RMP amendment in the same NEPA environmental impact statement as the solar project itself. As the environmental impact statement includes an RMP amendment, the draft EIS must be made available for a 90-day public comment period, and the final EIS must be presented to the governor's office for a 60-day consistency review to ensure that the project is consistent with state, local plans, policies, and programs. During the scoping period, the BLM provides preliminary planning criteria for review, which is available at the project website. The BLM is also considering a RMP amendment to modify 2 utility corridors that intersect the Copper Rays Solar Project boundary. This resource management plan amendment would be considered during this planning process. However, this modification may be considered under another planning effort, like the BLM Nevada statewide RMP modernization process. The map on the slide shows the considered resource management plan amendment for the utility corridors, with the project boundary in blue and the 2 utility corridors that intersect the project area. These utility corridors include a west-wide energy corridor, shown as the black crisscross line layer, and a utility corridor designated by the 1998 Las Vegas RMP, shown as the yellow polygon. The flowchart on the screen shows the application evaluation process, which begins with the submittal of a solar project application. The application is then prioritized based on the regulations and involves BLM interdisciplinary review. This helps the BLM prioritize and process solar application workload more efficiently. After prioritization, the applications move into the solar application evaluation process, which involves public information forums and agency coordination. When the evaluation is complete, the BLM will determine whether to continue to process the application and initiate the NEPA process. For the Copper Rays Solar Project, the BLM determined to continue processing the application and initiate the NEPA process. The scoping meetings are part of the early stages of the NEPA process for the project. The BLM completed application evaluation review of the Copper Rays Solar Project, including public outreach and coordination with appropriate federal, state, local, and tribal governments. Input was gathered through 2 virtual public information forums, an agency meeting, and associated input periods. During the public input period, 40 verbal comments and 67 additional input submissions via email or physical mail were received. Agency coordination on the project yielded 4 comment letters received during the input period. In addition to public and agency input, the BLM sent letters and conducted field trips for Native American tribes to assess interest and concerns with the project. BLM also sent letters to initiate formal government-to-government consultation. Tribal consultation is ongoing for the project. Additional information on the input received during the application evaluation process for the Copper Rays Solar Project can be found at the project webpage. On the screen, you will see a flow chart outlining the NEPA process for the Copper Race Solar Project. The NEPA process begins with the publication of a notice of intent, announcing the intentions of the BLM to complete an environmental impact statement, and in the case of this project, a resource management plan amendment. The notice of intent for the project was published on November 14th, 2022, which initiates the public scoping period. The scoping period for the Copper Race Solar Project was extended until January 13th, 2023. The scoping meeting tonight is included in this step in the NEPA process. After scoping, the BLM reviews the comments provided, generates issues to analyze, identifies any suggested alternatives, and develops the draft environmental impact statement and draft resource management plan amendment. The draft environmental impact statement for the project and resource management plan amendment are published for a 90-day review period initiated by the publication of a notice of availability. Comments submitted during the public review period are reviewed, and substantive comments are responded to in the final EIS and proposed resource management plan amendment. The final EIS and proposed resource management plan amendment are made available for 30 days with publication of a notice of availability. During the availability period, there is an additional review of the documents through a 30-day protest period and the Nevada Governor's consistency review of the final EIS and proposed resource management plan. If protests are received, they are responded to, and if no additional changes to the documents are necessary, then BLM would issue a record of decision for the environmental impact statement, which, if the project is approved, a right-of-way grant and notice to proceed would be generated. Input received during the application evaluation process yielded preliminary concerns identified by the public, local, state, federal agencies, and tribes, which are displayed on this slide. Additionally, the BLM conducted internal scoping of the project with the interdisciplinary team, which also generated preliminary resource concerns. These resources and issues will be considered during the analysis for the environmental impact statement. In order to adequately analyze the effects of the project, multiple resource technical studies have been completed or are scheduled to be completed. The list on the screen shows the technical studies currently required for the project, as well as the status or timeframe on when they would be completed. After the public scoping period, the BLM will determine if any additional technical studies are needed to analyze effects from the project. Next few slides provide additional information on issues and resource concerns identified during the input period for the application evaluation process, as well as review of the proposed Copper Race Solar Project by the BLM interdisciplinary team. These issues and resource concerns will be considered during the NEPA analysis for the project, along with those additional issues and resource concerns identified during the scoping process. Input gathered on the project identified potential concerns for biological and vegetation resources from the proposed Copper Race Solar Project. Issues identified included effects to special status wildlife species, like the threatened and endangered desert tortoise, and impacts to sensitive vegetation and soils from the proposed solar project. To assist in the analysis of these identified resource concerns, the BLM has coordinated with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and is required to complete Section 7 consultation in compliance with the Endangered Species Act. This would include receiving a biological opinion from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, as well as a desert tortoise translocation plan. Additionally, the BLM has initiated coordination with the Nevada Department of Wildlife about potential impacts from the project. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Nevada Department of Wildlife have accepted cooperating agency status for the project. The applicant, Copper Race Solar LLC, has designed the solar arrays for the project to attempt to avoid direct impacts to known locations of Pahrump Valley buckwheat and mesquite bosques within the project boundary. These locations have been removed from the proposed solar array areas and no construction would occur. The extent of appropriate avoidance measures for these species would be reviewed and analyzed during the NEPA process, which includes scoping. Input received and BLM interdisciplinary review of the proposed project also identified issues and concerns related to visual resources and recreation opportunities within the project area. These included issues related to the visual resource management class for the area, views from State Route 160 and surrounding communities, recreation use of the project area, including off-highway vehicle use, hiking, equestrian use, and camping, and access to public lands. In order to help analyze these concerns, visual resource simulations are being completed, which would be fully described in a visual resources technical report. Additionally, the BLM and the applicant will be gathering data on use of routes within and adjacent to the proposed project area. Copper Ray Solar LLC is proposing to maintain access to Old Route 16 where it crosses the project boundary by maintaining a fenced corridor through the proposed solar arrays on either side of the route. Additionally, Copper Ray Solar LLC has proposed a reroute of an existing route that intersects the western portion of the project. The proposed reroute would follow the project fence line to the southwestern corner of the project area and then connect to Old Route 16, which will have access maintained. These proposed designs to address recreation use would be reviewed and analyzed during the NEPA process, and other alternatives to addressing impacts to recreation opportunities may be considered. Input gathered also identified potential concerns with cultural and tribal resources from the proposed project. Input identified the project proximity to the Old Spanish National Historic Trail. Further review determined the project is more than 7 miles from the National Historic Trail, which is outside of the interim 5-mile trail corridor. To help address and analyze these cultural and tribal resource concerns, the BLM will be consulting with the Nevada State Historic Preservation Office under Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. This consultation process will be incorporated with the NEPA process for the project, and additional information on the National Historic Preservation Act process can be found at the project website. A cultural resources report was completed for the project, which BLM has reviewed and will be transmitting to the Nevada State Historic Preservation Office for their review and concurrence. The BLM has initiated engagement with Native American tribal governments, which included sending letters to invite the tribes to initiate formal government-to-government consultation and field trips to the proposed project. The BLM also invited the tribes to participate as cooperating agencies for the project. Tribal consultation for the project is ongoing. Potential impacts to air quality and climate change from the proposed Copper Ray Solar project were submitted during the input period. These included impacts from valley fever, greenhouse gas emissions, potential carbon sequestration loss from vegetation removal, temperature increase from proposed solar panels, and potential increases in fugitive dust and pollution. To assist with the analysis of these issues, the applicant is working on air quality modeling and an associated report. If you have any information or know of any peer-reviewed literature on these topics, that information would be appreciated during the scoping period. Potential impacts to socioeconomics, public safety, and transportation from the proposed Copper Ray Solar project were submitted during the input period. These included impacts to local economies and communities, job creation, construction traffic, public safety due to project proximity to Pahrump, questions on the project as it relates to the proposed Pahrump bypass route, and project proximity to residences. To assist with the analysis of these issues, the applicant is preparing a traffic report with input and review from the Nevada Department of Transportation. The applicant is also completing an economic modeling report. Issues related to water use, identified source, and stormwater and erosion concerns were gathered during the input period and BLM interdisciplinary review of the project. The applicant will be required, as necessary, to receive a Section 404 Clean Water Act permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for any jurisdictional waters that may be impacted by the project. Jurisdictional waters determination for the project is ongoing. Copper Ray Solar LLC will also be required to obtain permits for the project from Nye County. The BLM will require a water supply assessment be completed by the applicant, which would identify the water source which would be utilized during construction and operation of the proposed project. Copper Ray Solar LLC is currently assessing water sources within the project area. Additionally, the applicant will provide a drainage study for the proposed project, which BLM and other federal and local governments will review. Input gathered during the application evaluation process yielded concerns about the proposed Copper Ray Solar project in relation to other proposed projects within the Pahrump Valley area. Impacts from the proposed project and other actions within a given area and timeframe will be analyzed as part of the cumulative effects analysis for the project. Cumulative effects are those impacts on the environment that result from the incremental impact of the proposed action when added to other past, present, and reasonably foreseeable future actions, regardless of who is undertaking the action. This means actions proposed on federal, state, local, or private lands within an identified area and timeframe would be included in the cumulative effects analysis. On the screen, you will see a map of the proposed projects within the Pahrump Valley that are at various stages of review and processing by the BLM. These proposed projects are considered reasonably foreseeable future projects and would be included in the cumulative effects analysis for the Copper Ray Solar Project. Other past, present, and reasonably foreseeable future actions will be identified during the NEPA process, including the scoping period. On the map, you will see the Copper Ray Solar Project highlighted in blue striping. On the map, you will see the 4 other proposed projects and 1 currently authorized project located within the Pahrump Valley. The Rough Hat Clark County Solar Project, shown as the purple triangle, just finished the scoping period on December 5th, 2022. Information on the Rough Hat Clark County Solar Project, including project information and recordings of the scoping meetings, can be found at the project website, which we'll include a link to in the chat. The Golden Current and Mosey Solar projects, shown in brown and teal on the map, respectively, are currently undergoing review. The Golden Current project is undergoing variance process review. The Mosey Solar project is undergoing internal BLM review and was determined to be a medium priority project. The Rough Hat Nye County Solar project, shown as the green colored boundary, is currently paused while the applicant coordinates with Nye County and the local communities to address concerns with the proposed project layout. On the map, you will also see the location of the approved Yellow Pine Solar project, shown in yellow, which was authorized with a record of decision in the fall of 2020. If you have any information or additional projects or actions within or adjacent to the proposed Copper Ray Solar project, that information would be helpful for the NEPA analysis. Currently, we are in the public scoping period for the Copper Ray Solar project. Tonight's public scoping meeting and the scoping period that lasts until January 13th, 2023, provides you an opportunity to provide comments on the project. The information gathered during the meeting and the scoping period will inform the NEPA process and assist BLM in determining issues, impacts, and potential alternatives that will be addressed in the upcoming analysis. After the public scoping meetings have concluded, we will continue to gather comments on the project until January 13th, 2023. The information we gather will be considered in the draft environmental impact statement and resource management plan amendment, which is expected summer 2023. More information on the project can be found at the project webpage on the screen, which has also been provided in the chat. Helpful input and comments from you would include suggestions on how to refine the proposed project with methods for reducing or avoiding impacts to resources, including wildlife, botanical species, soils, landscape views, water resources, or recreation opportunities. Comments on the reasonable alternatives to the proposed action would also be helpful. Other helpful information includes identification of specific issues or concerns which may be evaluated in detail in the analysis, as well as identifying other past, present, or future actions within or adjacent to the project area. At this time, I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Caitlin, who will begin the question and answer session.
That concludes the presentation. We will now have a question and answer section on the Copper Ray Solar project. Questions can be submitted using the question and answer box by following the instructions on this slide. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A feature to submit questions. Please understand that some questions will be answered live during this question and answer session, while some may be answered in writing in the Q&A feature. Anyone can see all of the questions answered in the chat by clicking on the Show All button. As questions are organized and continue to come in, I will facilitate asking the questions for the project manager, Whitney Worthland, to answer them. first question, Nye County has a workshop for the master plan in progress. They have a moratorium on solar projects until it's completed. Citizens of Pahrump do not want solar projects within 30 to 40 miles from our county towns and townships. And we don't want our water used. There isn't enough gray water to use for a project 2,000 acres or more. What have you done to make sure this project won't have adverse effects on other counties?
So the scoping process is an early step in the NEPA environmental analysis and review. We are currently seeking comments and input from the public to assist in developing the issues and impacts that we would carry forward in the environmental review for the project. This could also include impacts to known resources, information on identifying mitigations to minimize potential impacts, analyzing reasonable alternatives, and disclosing environmental impacts that could result from the proposed project. The public will have an opportunity to review and comment on the draft environmental impact statement and resource management plan amendment. Additionally, both Clark and Nye counties are participating as cooperating agencies for the development of the environmental impact statement and the resource management plan amendment, and will provide their expertise that will aid in development of the analysis that's presented in those documents.
An additional question. How close will the nearest private residence be from the project border? Less than 1 mile?
Yes, the project boundary would be approximately 0.7 of a mile to the nearest private residence.
An additional question. Will desert tortoises be released back onto the project site?
The BLM and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service have designated both the Trout Canyon and the Stump Springs translocation areas that could potentially be used as recipient sites for the tortoises from the Copper Ray Solar Project area. If the project is approved, those translocated tortoises would not be released back into the project area following construction.
Thank you for your patience as we are waiting for questions to be organized. An additional question. When will the Nevada-wide RMP revision happen?
The Nevada-wide Resource Management Plan Modernization Project is currently being managed by the BLM Nevada State Office, and a timeline has not yet been established. And that information will be available on e-planning when that is made available.
How many acre feet of water for construction and how many acre feet for operation?
Sure. So the project anticipates needing up to 500 acre feet of water per year for construction of the project and less than 10 acre feet of water for operations and maintenance. The applicant has indicated that water would be purchased from nearby and existing water rights owners, and no new water rights would be secured.
As a reminder, while we wait, you will also be able to comment using the Participate Now button on e-planning via email or mail to the BLM Southern Nevada District Office until January 13th, 2023. A new comment has come in. The Inflation Reduction Act directs the BLM to approve 2 million acres of onshore oil and gas leases somewhere on public lands for every solar project that has been approved. How is this being handled by BLM? Also requires 40 to 60 million acres of offshore leases. Pretty strange, but that is in the bill and is law now.
So the Inflation Reduction Act conditions the issuance of right-of-ways for wind and solar energy development on public lands on two things. The BLM having held an onshore lease sale during the 120-day period before the issuance of the wind or solar energy development right-of-way, and the BLM having offered in the 1-year period preceding the date of the issuance of that right-of-way lesser of 2 million acres or 50% of the acreage for which expressions of interest had been submitted in that year. Following the NEPA review process, if BLM does issue a record of decision, or if BLM issues a record of decision approving the project, the BLM will ensure that compliance with the Inflation Reduction Act provisions prior to issuing the solar development right away.
Thank you. As a reminder for everyone on the line, we will be answering questions during this period and we'll be lowering any raised hands until the comment section of the meeting. New question. Does the applicant have water rights secured? Will the water come from on-site wells?
Sure. So the project applicant has indicated that water for the project would be purchased from nearby existing water rights owners and that no new water rights would be secured. The applicant would engage in best practices for the project and is committed to complying with the regulations and coordinating with the Nevada State Engineer, as well as implementing other measures to help ensure groundwater basin integrity. Copper Rays Solar LLC is currently updating their project water supply assessment to provide additional information on the identified water source, and which would be utilized for construction and operations and maintenance during the development. We do set any comments submitted during the application evaluation period that we received did indicate concerns for water use and identified water source. Those concerns are being carried forward into the NEPA analysis and will be analyzed during the environmental assessment or environmental analysis for the project. We'll also consider the cumulative effects of the project as well as the other projects in the Pahrump Valley with that analysis.
An additional question. How does the Nye County moratorium on solar projects impact this review?
The BLM is aware of the Nye County Board of Commissioners' approval of a 6-month temporary moratorium on the county's processing of future applications for renewable energy facilities while they're conducting public hearings to consider changes to the county code. For projects that are proposed on BLM managed lands within Nye County, the BLM is coordinating closely with the county for review of those applications. For the Copper Rays Solar project specifically, Nye County is a cooperating agency for the preparation of the environmental impact statement, and BLM values the critical coordination between Nye County and the input for the review of the projects.
Thank you everyone for your patience as we are waiting for questions to be organized. Question, will all of the vegetation on the site be removed or will it be preserved in some form?
Copper Ray Solar LLC is proposing for this project mowing with vegetation cut to less than 12 inches, or disc and roll construction techniques for the site preparation within the proposed solar field areas. There would be minimal grading only where necessary. The Southern Nevada BLM District Office is working on standardizing best management practices for vegetation management during construction, as well as operations and maintenance of the solar facilities. We're doing this in order to have consistency between project analysis. Through the NEPA project process, project design features, mitigation measures, and other action alternatives that address vegetation management may be developed and analyzed.
How many tortoises are there in the project area?
Sure. So surveys were conducted April 1st through April 8th in 2021. These surveys yielded 55 adult tortoises and 5 juvenile tortoises, which were observed within the project area. Based upon the survey informed model, it is estimated that 137 desert tortoises reside within the project area.
Is Cathedral Solar being reviewed?
So the BLM recently received a new application in the Pahrump Valley for a solar energy development project. This is the Cathedral Solar project. BLM is currently doing a preliminary review of the application.
An additional question, what other endangered species are in the project area?
So the desert tortoise is the only species on the threatened and endangered species list that resides within the project area.
How long is the construction period?
Sure. So the Copper Ray Solar project is proposed to be constructed in 2 phases. Phase 1 is estimated to take approximately 21 months to construct and has the potential to generate 200 megawatts of energy. Phase 2 is estimated to take approximately 33 months to construct with the potential to generate 500 megawatts of energy. Additional information on the project, including a more detailed schedule layout from the applicant, can be found in the preliminary plan of development, which we've included on the project website. And there's a link for it in the chat.
While we are waiting for questions to be organized, I do want to remind everyone that the scoping period is through January 13th, 2023. And after this meeting, you will be able to provide comments in writing to the BLM by email or mail or on e-planning. New question, how many Joshua trees on site?
So belt transects were distributed in different soil types across the project area in order to best estimate cacti and yucca density. From these belt transects, it was estimated that there are approximately 50 Joshua trees within the project area.
And additionally, how many Mojave yucca on site?
Sure. So there are approximately 37,000 Mojave yuccas are estimated within the project area.
A question also of how many parishes club cholla on site?
So there are no parish club cholla that were identified in the belt transects that were used to estimate cacti and yucca density within the project area.
Someone has asked, I would also like to see the BLM answer all of the questions in writing that have been asked by your viewers. Can you please supply that?
The recordings of the meetings will be posted to the project e-planning page. Additionally, we will be developing a scoping summary report that will capture all comments, questions, and answers from the meeting, as well as additional comments and that are submitted by writing. And that report will be included and published on the e-planning website as well for review.
Thank you for your patience as we continue to organize the questions. A question, has anyone looked at the water use in Boulder City project? 20 million gallons of water was used in 2 months.
So we're currently in the scoping period for the project, and we are soliciting and welcoming a submittal of information that would assist us in the environmental review, including scientific studies and other data on projects. So if you could please submit that information or comments to the project email, which we can go ahead and put in the chat.
Question, will the mesquite on the site be avoided? How high is the water table?
So there were approximately 5 acres of mesquite habitat identified within the Copper Rays Solar Project boundary. Currently, the applicant's plan of development proposes to avoid direct impacts to the mesquite bosque within the project boundary. We do not currently have information about the depth of the water table within the project area.
As a reminder, while we wait, you may also be able to comment using the Participate Now button on e-planning via email or mail to the BLM Southern Nevada District Office until January 13th, 2023. Question. Equipment from the Copper Rays, who will dispose of the panels?
So the applicant, Copper Rays Solar, would be responsible for disposal of the equipment during decommissioning, which includes the solar panels. The panels would be recycled and or possibly disposed of in accordance with all applicable federal, state, and local laws at the time of decommissioning.
Question. The town of Pahrump is not for this project, so why would you even consider moving forward with this project? Does the BLM not consider humans?
So the BLM is required to respond to applications that are submitted. We're currently in the scoping period and we're requesting information that would assist with the development of the environmental analysis for this project. We welcome comments and input from the public that will assist in review of the project through the NEPA process.
While we're waiting for questions to be organized, I do want to remind everybody that the scoping period is through January 13th, 2023. After this meeting, you will be able to provide comments to the BLM in writing via email or mail or on e-plan. Question: will the Joshua trees be salvaged or mulched?
Joshua trees within the proposed temporary disturbance areas will be transplanted and then replanted into those temporary disturbance areas after construction, and the areas are recontoured. The applicant's plan of development currently proposes to mow or disc and roll the site with limited grading. Through the NEPA process, though, project design features, mitigation measures, and other action alternatives that would address vegetation management, which would also include the management of Joshua trees or other yucca species within the solar project, may be developed and analyzed.
An additional question: will the large amount of people in Pahrump who oppose these projects influence your decision? Saying these projects are unpopular is an understatement.
So the BLM is currently in the scoping period, and we are inviting input from the public. This is the early stages of the environmental review process, and that information provided tonight and during comments will assist in the environmental impact statement development for the project. We appreciate everybody's input, and public input is a very critical part of this process, and it is considered by BLM decision makers.
Thank you for your patience as the questions are organized. A question: people in Pahrump that own water rights do have limits on the use water. How can this project buy water from those that hold rights? This would put people over the limit of rights that they hold, and they would be in violation. How could this be allowed to take place?
The proposed project is located in the Pahrump Valley Basin, which no new water rights are currently available. The Nevada Division of Water Resources is responsible for the allocation of water resources within the state of Nevada. Water could be purchased from existing water rights holders within the basin, and then BLM would consider impacts from the water use on connected sources and cumulatively across the area.
How will associated oil and gas lease impact climate change? Will the solar project offset CO2 emissions from the oil leases?
So based on input that was received during the application evaluation process for the Copper Rays Solar Project, the BLM will be considering the effects of the project on climate change and greenhouse gas emissions through the environmental impact statement analysis. We are currently in the scoping period, and we are gathering information and peer-reviewed literature related to this topic. So if you do have any of that information and would like to share it, please feel free to email it to the email that is at the project website, or you can also participate now on the e-planning page and submit comments and attachments that way as well.
Thank you. We have time for one or two more verbal question and answers, but we will continue to answer questions in writing throughout the meeting. An additional question. I used Boulder City as a model, and it will take 277 acre-feet of water for the first part of this project and 3,555 acre-feet of water for the second half. Water rights were over allocated for Pahrump by the state engineer. There's 20,000 acre-feet of water from only one source every year. Who is the BLM working with to know what is available?
So similar to the question previously asked, the Nevada Division of Water Resources is responsible for the allocation of water resources within the state of Nevada. Water could be purchased from existing water rights holders, and then BLM would consider those impacts for water use from the projects within the basin.
One of our last questions that will be answered verbally, how is it that there can be a taking for an endangered species?
Incidental take permits allow for the permittee to take a threatened and endangered listed species if such taking is incidental to and not the purpose of carrying out an otherwise lawful activity. Take limits are set by coordination by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the BLM and are based upon site-specific surveys. Take is only allowable if an action is not deemed to place a population in jeopardy.
Thank you. With that, we conclude our question and answer session. We will now transition on to the verbal input section. We will not be answering questions live. If you have any additional questions, you can continue to drop them into the Q&A box, and we will respond in writing, or you can email or mail any remaining questions to the BLM. As a reminder, anyone can see all the questions answered in the chat using the Show All button. We are going to take verbal comments following the order in which people pre-registered and said yes or maybe to wanting to provide public comments. Please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the screen, and the facilitator will open your microphone. If you are on the phone, you can raise your hand with *9 and then unmute and mute using *6. You will see a 2-minute timer on the next slide, and this will display the amount of time you have for your public comment. We are reserving 2 minutes per public comment. Your comment will be included in the project public record. After going through the list of those who pre-registered to speak, we will move on to anyone who may want to provide comments that did not identify that they wanted to provide those comments when they registered. BLM wants to hear from all members of the public. However, out of respect for everyone's participation and input, we do ask that you follow these guidelines. Please stay within your allotted time. On this slide, you will be able to see as time is running out. We ask that you watch this timer and be cognizant of the time allotted to please wrap up your comment. Additionally, please be respectful of others that are speaking and refrain from profanity. If these guidelines are not followed, your microphone will be muted and we'll have to move on to the next person. Let's go ahead and get started. Up first, we have Joyce Barishman. If you could please raise your hand and we will allow you to unmute your microphone.
Hi, good evening. Caitlin, I see the beautiful background on your picture of the desert. It's just gorgeous. By you allowing this project, we will lose all of this beauty. And I don't know how the BLM could allow this to take place. There's so many problems here with desert tortoises, water, dust, pollution. From my house, I live 3 miles from this project. I will be able to see it. And that will not be a pretty sight to me. I don't want to have that. And this project should not be allowed to take place. The people of Pahrump do not want it, and I do not want it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Up next, we have Kevin Emmerich. If you could please raise your hand, we can unmute you.
Hello, thank you. My name's Kevin Emmerich. My organization is Basin and Range Watch. I want to first start out by saying Rough Hat, Clark County, that's the one right next to this. You revealed that that area, along with Copper Ridge, has a high tortoise density of 5.6 per square kilometer. That's probably about 7 or 8 per square mile. Interestingly, that is higher than most of the established official recovery units for the desert tortoise, and that's because the desert tortoise is seeing a range-wide decline of 37%, according to the Fish and Wildlife Service. But here you have close to 30 square miles of existing or solar applications that it looks like you're intending to approve. The BLM, think about this. If you keep approving these projects, you take that habitat away, you're not going to release them back under the project. You will be contributing to the extinction of this species. It's going downhill. Or you can make the decision to say no to this project. You can go down as history as saving the species. That's what it's coming down to. First Solar, by the way, is notorious for fugitive dust, and Leeward used to be First Solar. Desert Sunlight, Antelope Valley Solar Ranch, Topaz Solar, they've sent workers home with valley fever. Look it up. They're going to hurt the people in Pahrump. You mentioned a Nevada-wide resource plan revision. I'd like you to wait to approve this project till you make that revision, because if you wait, we can give you an alternative that preserves this last really good desert tortoise area. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Up next, we have Michael Fender. If you are on, if you could please raise your hand and we can allow you to unmute, or if you are on the phone, you can press *9 and then we can unmute and mute you using *6. I am not seeing Michael Fender. If you do come on later or would like to speak later, you can raise your hand once we are through the pre-registered list. Up next, we have Carl Van Warmerdam. Great, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. So my name is Carl Van Warmerdam. Just want to, I'm advocating for the the desert tortoise. And want to remind the BLM that the Endangered Species Act ensures that the actions of implementing this copper ray solar farm is not likely to jeopardize the continued existence of any listed species or result in the destruction or adverse modification of critical habitat determined for any listed species, including the desert tortoise. The ESA Section 7A2, additionally Section 7A1 of the ESA requires BLM, as with all federal agencies, to utilize their authorities in furtherance of the purpose of this act by carrying out programs for the conservation of endangered species. So you will be taking out 5,000 acres of endangered desert tortoise habitat and taking 150 endangered species. I don't see this as being incidental at all. That habitat will be gone. Those tortoises will be gone. You're pushing them off, but they aren't going to survive otherwhere. So I just don't understand it.
Thank you, Carl. Up next, we have Amy Nelson. If you could just please raise your hand. Yes, we can allow you to unmute yourself. I believe you may be able to.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I want to remind the BLM, Pahrump has over 10,000 transplants from California. And a lot of these people were at the Board of Commissioners meeting and the Planning Board's meeting, speaking out against any kind of solar project. They not only ruin the ecosystem for hundreds of years, they generate a sound, a low-pitched sound. They put in lights that disturb people that are close by, and we don't benefit. We don't get any benefit from these solar projects. So I don't know why Clark County is going to the BLM or the Southern Nevada Water Association is going to the BLM and saying, let's put these over here by Pahrump. We don't want them out here. We're trying to put into our master plan that they not be put in within 50 miles of us. We don't want them in our towns. We don't want them near our towns or near our county. So if Clark County wants to continually destroy the ecosystem, let them do it on their side of the mountain. Don't keep bringing it out here using our water and our resources. And I don't care how many of these people that own water rights say they have, it's just going to deplete our water system totally with projects like this. And they just keep coming. This isn't the first one. We've got another one already in progress out here. It's closer than this one's going to be, but it's going to do as much damage when this one gets started. So I hope you turn this down and listen to the people. I was on the last webinar and it didn't go well then either. And I think the solar people backed out because of our comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Up next, we have Carolyn Santiago. If you could please raise your hand, we can allow you to unmute yourself. If you are the person on the phone, you can raise your hand with *9. Caroline wants to speak later. You may have another opportunity. Up next, we have John Hyatt. If you could please raise your hand. We can allow you to unmute yourself. One moment.
Thank you. I would like to address the cumulative impacts problem here. When the programmatic solar EIS was done, a number of solar energy zones were designated, and then the rest of the area was considered variance area. You are now in the process of creating a de facto solar energy zone here, one of the largest actually in the state, at least 20,000 acres with the summation of all these projects. I think that it would be very wise to complete the cumulative impact analysis for all of the projects before proceeding with the rest of the EIS for any project, and certainly this one. The Mojave Desert is probably the most intact ecosystem left in the continental United States. And the BLM has identified, I'm told, something like 9.1 million acres in Nevada, which are suitable for solar. And various agencies and organizations have said that we might need as much as 20 million acres of solar panels to decarbonize the economy of the Western United States. Basically, that would, if that happened, we could lose essentially all the Mojave Desert in Nevada that's less than 5% slope. And with all the tortoises gone, everything gone, it is incredibly important that we preserve intact and functioning ecosystems. And I don't really see much of any attempt here on the part of the BLM to maintain functionality of the ecosystem once these things are put in. Also, the idea that somehow this will be decommissioned and go away and be reclaimed in 20 years is nonsensical. This is a permanent industrialization of the desert, and that needs to be admitted to by the BLM, and the planning needs to take that into account. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Up next, we have Matt Flores. If you would like to talk, if you could please raise your hand and we will allow you to unmute yourself. If you are on the phone, you may raise your hand with *9. If you would like to talk later this evening, you will be able to have the opportunity to do so. Up next, we have Simone. If you would like to talk, if you could please raise your hand, we will allow you to unmute yourself. We will move on to Tina Bond Coughlin. If you could please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. We will move on. We have Sarah Bliss. If you are interested in commenting, if you could please raise your hand. As a reminder for the person on your phone, if your name does get called, you are able to raise your hand with *9. Moving on, we have Scott Carey. If you are interested in speaking, please raise your hand. We will move on to Jill Jensen. Jill would like to speak. Please raise your hand. Moving on, we have Jeff Finnegan. If you would like to speak, please do raise your hand. Or if you are the person on the phone, please do raise your hand with *9. We'll move on to Alan Stainer. If you are on the line and you would like to comment, please raise your hand. As a reminder for anybody that if later you do want to comment, there will be an opportunity after we get through the pre-registered list. We will move on to Shannon Salter. Right, we will move on to Candace McFarlane. If you would like to comment at this time, please raise your hand. If you wish to speak later, there will be another opportunity. Up next on the list, we have John Wagner. Just to check, Candace McFarlane, did you wish to speak? We may have missed your hand. I don't think I saw it go up, but if you do wish to speak, just want to make sure you have that opportunity. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Jose Witt. As a reminder for the person on the phone, if you are called, you may raise your hand with *9. Right, for now, we will move on to Teresa Sky. Great, thank you. We will now unmute you.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Hi. I did a hike today in the Mojave Desert with a group of friends and thought about the solar farms that are being put in. I was surrounded by desert pavement, by beautiful plants of the desert, clean air. It wasn't dusty. And this would all change with all these solar farms that are being planned for our beautiful valley. 20,000 acres, I think it is. The gentleman previously mentioned how all these things are being done piecemeal, and it really needs to be looked at as a whole. The entire connectivity of these places has to be looked at, and how it affects the desert wildlife and the desert plants. We live in a beautiful location. I'm sad now as I drive from Vegas to Pahrump and see if it's a slightly windy day, I see the yellow pine site, the wind blowing. And I really, really wonder if the people in the southern part of the valley, Mountain Falls and Artesia area, really understand what's going on very few miles outside of their properties, outside of their locations. And I think that as a community, we need to let those people know what's going on, because frankly, I talk to, once in a while, I run across a friend and they have no knowledge of this, of what's happening in with these solar farms being put in. So I think we need to spread the word more. I think we need to get it out there as a group. And we're not against solar as a family. We have solar on our roofs, but it's not the way to go to dig up our desert. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. All right, we'll move on to Rachel Pintarelli. If you would like to speak, please do raise your hand using the raise hand function, or if you are the person on the phone, you may use *9. Not seeing a hand raised, so with that, we will move to the last person on the pre-registered list, and that's David Attaway. If you would like to speak, please do raise your hand. All right, those are all the people who pre-registered to speak. We will now open the floor for anyone who did not pre-register or would like to speak again. Please use the raise hand function and we will unmute you. Up first, we have Joyce Barishman.
Okay, my husband would like to speak. His name is Mike Barishman. So can you please set the timer for him?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of Pahrump Valley.
Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of Pahrump Valley. We've heard a lot of technical jargon, but we haven't heard anything about what these solar farms are going to do or what they're not going to do for our Pahrump Valley. First of all, I'm looking at a map here of proposed, paused, authorized, and construction solar projects in the Pahrump Valley. Ladies and gentlemen, this looks like the blob from outer space that is going to swallow our entire Pahrump Valley from the bottom all the way up to the 160 and beyond. What the solar farms will not do for our valley, they will not create any significant local job market, not at all. They're not going to contribute in any tangible way to our economy. I'm talking about buying a few lunches for a couple of employees. They will bring no tangible results. They're not going to lower our energy costs. If anything, our energy costs are going to go up. What they will do for our valley, they'll increase surrounding air temperatures, outside air temperatures. They're going to go up by about 5%, as was told by us back in March from the people who want to do a rough hat. What else they will do? They will destroy public lands and flora and fauna. I don't know what makes people think that they care about the flora and about they will lower our water tables. They're going to create more airborne dust and dirt. They're going to lower our property values. The solar farms want to use our roads, our infrastructure, our water, and we're not going to get anything back in return. We got to get informed and get the word out to everybody in Pahrump, everybody in Mountain Falls, Cottonwoods, Artesia, all the way up to Simcoe, because we're going to get swallowed by these solar farms and burned to a crisp from the bottom up. That's it. I'm done.
Thank you. Any additional person would like to speak, if you could please raise your hand, or if you are the person on the phone, you may raise your hand with *9. Looks like we have Amy Nelson.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. The people online that want to make sure that this doesn't happen, they need to attend the planning and zoning meetings on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. at the Board of County Commissioners building over on Calvada I. And they can also attend these follow-ups with the Board of County Commissioners every first and third Tuesday of the month. And those are held at 10 a.m. People can call into them. They can watch them on Granicus, or they can go in person. And I highly recommend that they go there and have their voices heard so that none of these projects get an okay, and that something can be done to eliminate Southern Nevada Water Authority from having any say-so about the water that we use out of our town. Clark County has use of water, but they don't want to put in their own wells for Basin 162. They want to use our water. And so there's some greedy people out here that are overextending their water rights. And people need to speak up and get informed and bring their friends to these meetings so that they can be heard and they can stop these projects. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. There is an additional person that would like to speak. If you could raise your hand, or if you're the person on the phone, you can raise your hand using *9. If anyone would like to add an additional comment, you may raise your hand now. As a reminder to anybody who would like to provide a verbal comment, please do raise your hand. Or if you are the person on the phone, you can raise your hand using *9. As a reminder to everybody here tonight, the BLM team will be here until 8 as we finish out the scoping meeting. See, 2 new hands have raised. As such, Amy Nelson, if you would like to talk again, I have allowed you to untalk.
Thank you very much. I was a little bit out of breath. I wanted to let the audience know that on the 14th of December, there is a planning and zoning meeting at 6 p.m. where they are doing a workshop. And some of these workshops will include solar projects in and around Nye County, which includes how far away they can be from us. They can call the planning and zoning department and get a schedule, or they can get a Board of County Commissioner meeting schedule. They can go to the website nyecounty.net and they can see, they scroll down to the bottom and they can see some of the agendas, and they can go to departments and look up the planning and zoning department, which is also known as RPC. And some of these issues can be prevented if the public just gets involved and lets these directors and commissioners know what the needs of the people are. And so I wanted to add that on. I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Amy. Up next, we have John Hyatt.
Thank you. The 1976 Federal Land Management and Policy Act essentially designated the BLM as a multiple use agency, meaning that lands could be used for more than one thing. This movement towards renewable energy, specifically solar panels, is really a single use which will last permanently into the far indefinite future. but yet there's no real planning for how we're going to deal with this. I think the BLM is completely remiss in not undertaking a major planning effort with lots of public input as we embark on the largest single use, permanent use of BLM lands that's ever happened. I think most of the people who think of public land have no idea that potentially and probably almost certainly millions of acres of public land will be devoted to renewable energy to the exclusion of any other use. So I'm very disappointed that the leaders in the BLM are not raising the alarm and saying, before we move down this road, we need to actually have some discussions and some plans as to how we maintain intact ecosystems and how we essentially keep from having the entire desert that's not mountainous turned into an industrial zone. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone would like to add an additional verbal comment during the scoping meeting, please raise your hand. Or if you are the person on the phone, please press *9. Those are all the people who have asked to speak at this time. As one more reminder, the public scoping period is open until January 13th, 2023, and you can comment via email, sending in a hard copy comment, or using the Participate Now button on the BLM. Nicholas will now do a brief closeout.
Yeah, good evening, everybody, again, and I just want to say thank you for all your participation. I think this is one of the key and parts of the NEPA process is being able to get the input from those of you guys that were willing to speak. We look forward to continuing this process. As you can see on there, we have a couple more weeks for folks to provide comments to us, and we do take those seriously. We look forward to working with each of you guys, and at this point, I'll turn it back to Caitlin to carry out the meeting, but we'll be here to continue out the meeting.
Thank you, Nicholas. So we will be on until 8 p.m., but that concludes the presentation and the verbal comment for tonight. As a correction, we will be here for any additional verbal comments or questions in the Q&A feature.